Morning. We're going to call the meeting to order of the Delaware County Council, April 22nd, 2025, 9:02 a.m. If you'd all stand for the pledge. Coroner Green, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Gavin. Appreciate it. Roll call, please. Mr. Bookout.
Present.
Mr. Flanagan. Present. Mr. Mokel. Here. Mr. Hughes. Here. Mr. Cantz.
He's here.
Piper.
Here.
Wyatt. Present. Mr. Freeman.
Here.
Was the agenda posted properly? Thank you. Motion to approve agenda. Second. Had a motion by Dan and a second by Jessica. Roll call. Mr. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Mokel.
Yes.
Mr. Bookout.
Yes.
Ms. Piper.
Yes.
Cantz. Mr. Wyatt. Yes. Are you able to hear him, Ed?
I need to turn him up
Very
some
well.
more.
Microphones were in directions.
Can you say hi or something? I just turned on my.
Yes, hi.
Can you hear him better now?
I am present. More better.
And I can see him.
Speak into the microphone specific to the audio record.
Okay.
Alrighty. Moving on to the March minutes.
And I'll motion to approve.
Second. Motion by Jessica, second by Dan. Any comments, questions, or corrections? Hearing none, roll call, please. Mr. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Mokel.
Yes.
Mr. Bookout.
Yes.
Ms. Piper.
Yes.
Cantz.
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt. Yes. Thank you, Ed. All right, moving on to appointments and committee reports. We'll move to the Delaware County Housing Authority. Mr. Bowers, who I contacted, please give us an update.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Mr. President, Whitehead, members of the County Council, we, the Board of Directors, Mr. Robert Wilson, our Chairman, Mr. Lefay Pegues, CEO of Tom John's Barbecue, Ms. Kira Childress, Consultant, Mr. Jason Lips, a member of the Remax Kramer Group, Mr. Tim Pierce, CEO of Prime Trust, Ms. Patricia Rorak, a staff member of Christian Ministries and our resident member, and Ms. Noam Marino, our executive director, and staff. We appreciate your invitation to present an overview of the Delaware County Housing Authority's mission. As such, I'd like to introduce Ms. Noam Marino, our executive director, who will present a brief overview of the Delaware County Housing Authority, its mission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for the invitation to come before you.
Good morning.
We are Delaware County Housing Authority, more commonly known as Middletown Garden. We have 162 public housing units. 112 of these were constructed in the 30s. The other 50 were constructed in the 80s. We have procured and contracted with a master planner and developer in the hopes of redeveloping the 1930s construction. This is still very, very early stages, so there's really not much to report other than we are, along with the board, planning to upgrade our housing. We also have 50 units that were built in the 80s. We're hoping to rehab those and upgrade currently our family housing for 2, 3, 4 bedroom families. We have no air conditioning. We don't have washer dryer hookups. Modern conveniences of today, they really don't. Hoping to upgrade those also. The development is going to be like turning a battleship around, I found out. But we are actively working on it. All commissioners are involved. All staff is involved. Right now, we don't have much to report, but we will keep you, someone of us will keep you updated. We also administer a Section 8 program. Currently, we have 175 families under contract. We serve only outside of Muncie city limits, so all of our Section 8 housing is in the county. Both programs are income-based. We serve predominantly families in the lower 30% income, which is the very, very low. We have, with a combination of both programs, approximately 170 to 80 head of households are elderly and disabled families. Approximately 80 in public housing and approximately 80 on the second. We only have a staff of eight full-time employees, and we have one part-time employee who works in our maintenance department. We do have a long-term staff, and if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And overall, with the council, I'd like to thank you for our commission, because we not only have very active commissioners, we also have commissioners that are interested in making this happen and maintain our low-income housing in Delaware. So if any of you have any questions about our programs at any time, you can give me a call. I'd be more than happy to answer. And that's what we do.
Are your units full?
We maintain, in our public housing, we maintain 98% lease up.
Do you have a waiting list or?
Not a very long waiting list. Our one bedrooms is the highest demand. And that waiting list, we have to close it, we get so many. That are 2s, 3s, and 4s. And we have a waiting list.
Any other questions from council?
More of a comment. This is pardon me, one of the reasons I had asked for us to bring this board before us. I'm friends with some of the members, or have known them for quite a long time, and I'm always just so impressed with how well they work together. And anytime it's up for re-election, you know, the Republicans come and support the Democrats. The Democrats come and support the Republicans, because they do work so well, and they have a great synergy that they're champions for each other, not just the housing authority. And I really enjoy seeing that. We actually have Bob and LaFay here in the audience too. So just a really strong board full of very active members, like you said, and I'm very proud of this board.
And if I may, it's not just active, but committed, because there's education requirements. It's a long-term commitment. It's not just simply go to one meeting a month. I mean, it's a lot of commitment. I thank all of you there.
Take time off to go to training, that annual that you go, that they have to go to training. So there's time taken off if they are employed, taking off of work and from their jobs. And it's a lot more than, like you said, going to one meeting a month.
And I have an invitation to any and all of you. Our board meetings are open, and we meet the fourth Thursday of the month at the office.
2401 South Haddock, right in the middle of Middletown Gardens, in the admin office.
What time?
I would like to share with you that those
8:30 a.m.
I'm sorry, thanks.
Excuse me.
She's the boss.
Don't let him tell you that. He straightens me out every once in a while.
Those facilities definitely need rehab, because I'm as old as they are. I want to tell you what, they need rehab. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the Yorktown Public Library Board appointment. I have only had one person recommended or reach out to me, and that was Carolyn Klein Gant, at the recommendation of the Yorktown Library Board Director, Liz Roselle. Has anybody else or the auditor's office heard or received anything? All right, hearing none, I guess I entertain a motion to appoint.
Second.
All right, there's a motion by Brad and a second by Jessica. Any comments? All right, hearing none, roll call, please. Mr. Flanagan. Yes. Hughes. Yes. Mr. Mogul. Yes. Buckout.
Yes.
Piper.
Yes.
Cantz.
Yes.
Triad. Yes. Thank you, council. We'll move on to follow up with the Redevelopment Commission and Mr. Eckerly to give us a little update.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Pleasure to be here today. My name is Matt Eckerly. I'm with Baker Tilly out of Indianapolis, and we serve as the financial advisor to the county and to the County Redevelopment Commission. And I'm here today at the request of Councilor Whitehead to do a presentation on just an update on the status of the various tax increment allocation areas that the Delaware County Redevelopment Commission has under its jurisdiction. I believe in advance of today's meeting, you've received two different presentations. One that is titled TIF Management Report 2024 is a look back at your TIF activities for the 2024 calendar year. And then the other one that just simply says Delaware County Redevelopment Commission TIF Allocation Areas Presentation dated March 13th is a look forward. That's a report that we do annually and present to the Redevelopment Commission that provides an update on estimated tax increment revenues for each of the allocation areas and the status of the outstanding debt obligations for each allocation area. And last month we presented that to the Redevelopment Commission. Now, one caveat I do want to put out there for this report is, as I'm sure everyone is aware, last week the governor signed into law Senate Ruled Act 1, the property tax reform bill. That's going to have effects on your budget and on your TIF areas. And, we're in the process of consulting with attorneys and other stakeholders around the state to, determine exactly how to quantify those effects. And so that's something that we'll circle back with the Redevelopment Commission, with the Auditor's Office team, and certainly with yourselves as that comes into better definition to provide updates as warranted. So I did want to provide that qualification that a little bit has changed in the last month from when we finalized this report. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the TIF management report. And I'm not, as I'm sure you're all aware, you have 27 allocation areas, some more active than others. Unless you want to live in the details, I'm just going to keep it pretty high level this morning in the interests of everyone's time. Always happy to answer any questions in the moment or afterwards. My contact information is included in these packets, so feel free to shoot me an email, give me a call. As some of you know, I'm always happy to have a conversation and answer questions. So the TIF management report, which was finalized last week and submitted on the DLGF's Gateway website by the Auditor's Office last Tuesday, is by statute required to be submitted by April 15th each year, and then also publicly presented to the County Council. You're not required to take any formal actions on it, merely an update on the activities of the Redevelopment Commission. And this is one of a calendar year of different requirements that the Redevelopment Commission needs to complete, and that we work in conjunction with the Redevelopment Commission to help ensure compliance. Through the end of last year, we were frequently working with Brad, burning up the phone lines and email lines back and forth, and then also with Ed's office to make sure that we had all of the pertinent data that was required to help complete these requirements. And really, I cannot say enough about the efforts of the ladies in the Auditor's Office along with Ed to get us that information. I'm sure sometimes they see emails from us and they're like, oh no, Matt or Julia or Sam needs something else, but they always get us what we need, and we really appreciate that. So just moving through some of the information in the TIF management report, there's by code required information. So we have to include the names of all the Redevelopment Commission members for the prior year, a listing of each allocation area and its establishment date. And one thing that you'll see in the larger report as well is that we also have an accompanying information on the expiration date for each allocation area. And I want to take a second to talk about that. The expiration date for TIF allocation areas is defined in Indiana code. And it's dependent on when those allocation areas were established. And you here in Delaware County have a mix of different establishment dates. So you've really got allocation areas that are subject to every type of expiration date that's outlined in the state law. So you have two allocation areas that were established before July 1 of 1995, and we call those legacy areas. And those are the Daleville redevelopment allocation area and the original Morrison Road allocation area. Those expirations are tied to the final maturity of the bonds that you have outstanding that were issued in Daleville in 2015 and in Morrison Road in 2015, but then they were refinanced due to advantageous market conditions in 2021. And we worked very closely with Brad and Eugene. I can't remember, were you on the Redevelopment Commission at that time?
Yes, sir.
So worked very closely with them to save the county some money through refinancing that debt back in 2021. So those two allocation areas will expire at the final maturity of those bond issues. Then you have several allocation areas that were established between July 1 of 95 and June 30th of 2008. Those have a statutory life of 30 years. And then you have several allocation areas established after July 1 of 2008, and those have a statutory life that is 25 years from the date the first obligation was incurred, payable from the tax increment generated in those allocation areas. So you have some of those allocation areas where you have incurred debt, the Fuson Shell building, which was the Living Greens Farms project, the Fountain Square, which is Campac. Those both had bonds issued a couple years ago. Those expirations are tied to the issuance of those obligations. You have other post-January or July 1 of 2008 allocation areas that have not yet had debt incurred, so they don't have a statutory expiration date as of now. But the Redevelopment Commission, it's within its purview that as long as it's not jeopardizing the repayment of any debt obligations, they can terminate that allocation area as they see fit. And there's a public process that they need to follow to do that. Now, one thing to note, and I know this has been there are a couple questions on that topic. One, when you terminate an allocation area, there could still be money remaining in the allocation fund. The interpretation we've received from legal counsel is that at the termination of the allocation area, that money it was collected as TIF, it needs to be spent as TIF, even if the allocation to that area itself is no longer active. So that's something to keep in mind. You can't just transfer that to the general fund and use it however you see fit. It's subject to the same restrictions. Another key question that we get a lot is, well, if an area is coming up towards the end of its statutory life, can we just extend it and keep collecting the money? And the answer to that is no. Once you reach the statutory expiration, you can reestablish an allocation area over the same geography, but the base assessed value, which is the assessed value that is going to the overlapping taxing units, that gets reset to be equal to the net assessed value as of that reestablishment date. So you won't be continuing to capture what you've always captured. You can only capture the incremental value generated over and above what was in place at that point in time. Does that make sense to everyone? And one thing I want to point out as well, it's a frequent question. I know I've had this conversation in this very room before, but it's worth rehashing because of recent legislative changes. TIF operates on the assessed value side of the ledger. And what happens is you're capturing the incremental assessed value and the property taxes derived from it and allocating that to the Redevelopment Commission for use within the bounds of state law. When a TIF area is terminated or expires, if it was capturing $1 million a year in revenue, that does not mean that there's $1 million of new revenue then that gets allocated to the overlapping taxing units each year. What that means is that assessed value is growing. You're still going to have the same controlled levies that you have to deal with. So is the school, the library, the township. They're all going to have their levy controls still in place. So what you're doing is you're growing the tax base and you're dividing those levies by a bigger tax base then. So what that's really doing is putting downward pressure on your property tax rate. So that's something to keep in mind as you start reaching the end of the life for some of these allocation areas. Is that does not mean that, Morrison Road's capturing a couple $1 million. That's a couple $1 million cash money that everyone else is going to be getting. Really, that's a couple $1 million less that other taxpayers are going to have to be paying into the budgets for each taxing unit. Does that make sense to everyone? Thanks for humoring me with the property tax 101. So just moving on through, another key element of the TIF management report is a summary of the revenues and expenditures by allocation area. And in that, you can really see some of them are more active than others. Some of them simply haven't started developing yet. So, continue to work with the auditor's office to monitor, make sure everything's operating as they should, and then working with the Redevelopment Commission team to make sure all the money's put in the right buckets and that you're paying your bonds on time. Moving on, another requirement is a summary of all the fund balances as of 12/31/24. So that's included in here as well. One thing to keep in mind with the fund balances is that's a snapshot as of the end of the calendar year. So that's following your December property tax settlement. but before the next payments are required to be made on your debt obligations. So some of those fund balances, they look great, but you've got to account for, a few weeks later, Ed's office was sending that money to First Merchants and other bondholders to make sure that they were getting paid on time. Another annual requirement in this, and quite a few fund balances, so there's a lot of funds, is a summary of your debt obligations. You have several bond issues payable from tax increment. One thing I want to point out is that each of these debt obligations, the only obligation of county money to repay them is the tax increment generated in those allocation areas. No other county funds are at risk if the TIF is to fall short. So I think that's something very important to keep in mind, because sometimes people look at it, and especially when you've got two obligations, the Nebo Road, which is Nebo Land Partners, the car dealerships out on Nebo Road, and the Park Tucson, which is Mersix. Those two bond issuances, if you look at the look forward report, your tax increment revenues are not estimated to be sufficient to meet the full obligation. But what the county did was entered into agreements with those developers where the developers assumed the risk of those shortfalls and make shortfall payments. So the county is only on the hook for the amount of tax increment generated in those allocation areas. No other county funds are at risk. And then for the rest of the debt issuances, Morrison Road, New Bravini, which is really the basket of Park 1 allocation areas, PRL, Daleville, and then the Canpack and Living Greens Farms, those are solely secured by a pledge of tax increment from the allocation area. And this is something where, again, Brad and I had a lot of conversations as he was working with the Redevelopment Commission, where it was continually emphasized, and I know Eugene was part of these as well, it was continually emphasized to structure these transactions to protect the taxpayers of Delaware County. And so that's what the approach was in the structure and the execution of those bond issuances for each one of those. The Fountain Square and Fuson Shell, again, that's Canpack and Living Greens. Those were incentive transactions. Those were purchased by the developers. So the developers are assuming the risk of their own performance and tax payments. And those are each also payable from limited pledges of tax increment, which means a chunk of those tax increment revenues in each of those allocation areas is actually getting allocated to the Redevelopment Commission for its use strategically throughout the benefit of those allocation areas. And then the other projects were used to fund infrastructure that was required in those allocation areas, a variety of different infrastructure. I know Morrison Road, one of the big initiatives was sidewalks and trails throughout the Morrison Road area, road improvements. PRL was also an incentive for PRL. Park 1, that's one which is, we have it labeled New Bravini here, issued a fund among other things, more traffic signalization out in that area. So you've used historically, tax increments strategically to incentivize new development while protecting the taxpayers of Delaware County, and also to fund needed infrastructure in those geographies, again, using a resource that's not drawing directly from the general fund or the highway funds to get some things done, which frees up those other funds to be used throughout the county. So that was a long-standing approach as we worked with the Redevelopment Commission and continued requests as we were working with Brad, with Eugene and others in the Redevelopment Commission to help define those kind of strategic uses to try to benefit the taxpayers at large. And then really that's the conclusion of what's required by state code in the TIF management report. There are some required parcel lists, but those, I don't think anyone can really interpret those in the moment. You don't want 100 pages of Excel spreadsheets. So again, this was filed last week in accordance with state code, and we wanted to make sure that we presented that to you here today. Now, I'll call your attention to the thicker report or presentation. And I will point out that late yesterday I did send to Eugene, I think he'll be sharing it with the rest of the council. This presentation is a summary of this report. which we have been preparing annually for about 10 years for the Redevelopment Commission to aid in its ongoing monitoring of the TIF allocation areas and to determine, what opportunities may exist to deploy TIF funds to the benefit of the county. And especially in this new environment we're going to be operating in, I think you're going to see a lot more communities operating similar to what Delaware County has done and looking at their tax increment allocation areas if they have capacity as resources to draw upon to get needed projects done to preserve the fund balances and revenue sources that may be more flexible to deploy throughout the county. Again, Delaware County has long done this. There's other communities around the state that have done it, such as Mishawaka, South Bend, Carmel. And it's something I think you're going to see more and more, just given the revenue realities facing local governments. So to hit some of the highlights of the Look Forward report, again, this includes information not only on what I just described in the TIF management report, but it's just got a little more meat on the bones, so to speak, on the nature of each of your debt obligations, maturities. One thing we're constantly watching for, and one thing that the county again has been successful with in the past, is as these bond issues grow, or that's the wrong word, as they kind of proceed through their legal term, they become callable, which means you can repay them early or refinance them early. And so something that we've looked for, and again, back in 2021, we refinanced Morrison Road and Bravini. One nice thing about the Bravini rail spur bonds was those were the only bonds that carried a property tax backup of the county. And it was a priority of the Redevelopment Commission to knock out that property tax backup. So we were able to help the Redevelopment Commission get those refinanced and removed that property tax backup. So it is solely payable from tax increment. And then further down the road, you were able to progress and actually pay those off using cash money and issue new bonds to do things, among other things, traffic signalization and whatnot out in the Park 1 area. But we include the information for each of these obligations on where you might be in the call cycle. We're watching the market, and as rates, hopefully move in the right direction here before long, you might have additional refinancing opportunities. And if that happens, we'll be sure to reach out to the Redevelopment Commission and the county itself to hopefully coordinate and execute those transactions to, again, save some money for the taxpayers of Delaware County.
Matt, if I may, right here in front and center. What he just said there is really important for the county, especially the Redevelopment Commission, because you have to partner with good banks and lending institutions who will work with the county to be able to refinance or to pay off early. Because when we did that back in 21, there were some that would not have worked because the banks wouldn't work with us to either refinance them or pay them off early. So that's why it's key to have good community partners when we develop these.
I would agree wholeheartedly with that.
Thank you for letting me interrupt. Please continue.
Sure. Well, feel free to interrupt with questions as I go. Included in this report too, we look at actual performance of the allocation area in 2024 versus estimates. We look at your estimates for pay 2025, revenues, obligations, and then identifying what you might have left over to work with. So that's included throughout the report for each of the allocation areas. One feature on the allocation area that I think you've had the most activity historically is Morrison Road. That is, like I said, one of your two legacy TIF areas. And what that means, in addition to having a different statutory expiration date, that's one of the few allocation areas where you can actually capture homestead residential development. Most traditional TIF areas, you cannot capture homestead residential. Well, what has been the longstanding policy of the Delaware County Redevelopment Commission with Morrison Road, it has been, well, that might be eligible to be captured, but we don't need or want to capture it. So annually, by June 15th, redevelopment commissions are required to make a finding on what they intend to capture for the next calendar year. And each year, as long as I've worked with Delaware County, which is virtually my entire career, each year the redevelopment commission has made that determination to pass through the incremental assessed value that is eligible to be captured from homestead residential properties. And so last year, that was about $11.1 million that the redevelopment commission pass through to the overlapping taxing units, and then the overlapping taxing units see the benefit of that growth in tax base from that assessed value. So that's something, you don't do that with all of your allocation areas. The only other allocation area where you pass through assessed value currently is the ag park allocation area. Everywhere else, you're capturing 100% of the assessed value, but I wanted to point out that feature as a way that the Redevelopment Commission has been able to act historically to provide some more immediate benefit to the overlapping taxing units in the form of that growth in incremental assessed value. And that would have generated about $300,000 in tax increment revenues. So it's not a small amount of money, but the benefit to the overlapping taxing units has long been seen as worth passing that up. Now, as we look at all of your allocation areas, again, I'm keeping it high level, but I'm happy to dive into details as you want, is for the allocation areas that I mentioned before that have debt obligations outstanding, for all except for the Tucson and the Nebo land partners, your tax increment revenues are estimated to be more than sufficient to meet your debt service need. We don't see any concerns there. And then for the two, Mersix and Nebo land partners, where we're estimating there are shortfalls, again, there are agreements in place with the private partners for those allocation areas where they're on the hook for any shortfalls, not the taxpayers of Delaware County. So as we sit here today and look at your allocation areas, we don't see any red flags in terms of you being in jeopardy of not meeting your debt obligations. Now, again, we'll have to recalibrate somewhat as we start to work through Senate Enrolled Act 1 and understanding what that means for the county. I would say because of the nature of the composition of your allocation areas, I don't have significant concerns on that front, but it's something we're going to have to dig into once the dust settles. And the dust settles includes us reading through it, I've talked with a lot of attorneys in the last week and a half, and then also receiving guidance from the Department of Local Government Finance and other state agencies on how some of these changes are meant to operate. So again, we'll be monitoring this. We'll be in contact with the Redevelopment Commission team and certainly with the Auditor's Office and yourselves as well. Another item I want to point out, and again, kind of in the spirit of what I said earlier of Delaware County historically being able to deploy TIF funds to fund projects that increase economic opportunity, but also just things that needed to get done. You do have a couple of allocation areas where you've done that before, and that opportunity continues. And that would be the Nebo Road number 2 allocation area. I believe historically you've used it for some bridge projects and road projects out in that geography. And then also the Industrious Center kind of bucket of allocation areas. And that includes, and I'm going to just look at the list, make sure I don't miss one. So out there you have PRL and you have Fountain Square and Fuson, where those have debt obligations associated with them. So those aren't freed up to be able to utilize. That being said, you have Midwest Metal, which did have bonds issued from it, but several years ago, again, working closely with Brad, and I think Eugene was on the Redevelopment Commission at this time as well, we saw the opportunity, you had enough cash in the bank, why pay interest if you could just pay it off? Those bonds were fully paid off. So the Midwest Metal revenue stream is now unobligated and free to be used elsewhere. That'd be Midwest Metal, Magna, the Industrious Center, the North Industria, and State Road 67 is in that geography. No, it's the East State Road 32 is out in that geography as well. So those allocation areas are generating money that's not obligated. So that becomes available for the Redevelopment Commission, in consultation with the county, to utilize strategically to meet needs in that geography or directly benefiting that geography. So, that could be in the form of pay-as-you-go projects, building up fund balances and spending the money, or issuing debt if you saw enough of a need to fund projects. So I wanted to highlight those two areas in particular as opportunities that exist for the county. Again, recognizing the new revenue reality you'll likely be facing. Revenues are going to change, but the projects aren't going to go away. So that's something as we continue to update these reports, and I know I've spoken with Commissioner Brand about this as well and his role in the redevelopment commission, those become opportunities to deploy for the greater good of the county, maybe focus more in that geography, but that takes some pressure off of your other limited funds that you have to work with. So wanted to point those out in particular as opportunities. And then, beyond that, Morrison Road, Daleville, Park One, you're still generating revenues that exceed what's needed for debt. You're not really going to have the capacity to pledge to another bond issue necessarily, but you're going to have the capacity to get things done. And that's one of the reasons that the Redevelopment Commission started asking us to prepare this report each year, was that so they could get visibility into that and figure out, okay, this is what we have to work with. What do we need to get done to increase the economic activity or support the existing economic activity in these geographies? So I know I kept it very high level. And I also recognize that a lot of people don't like to live in spreadsheets like I do. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have right now. Or again, as I mentioned, feel free to pick up the phone, shoot me an email. Always happy to spend a little bit of time walking through the details as needed.
I do have a question from Matt that came in, and you kind of highlighted on it, but could you summarize briefly what you feel are the biggest impacts, TIFs from SB1 now?
So there are a couple things that I'm looking at specifically. There's the reformulation of the homestead deduction. So for Daleville and Morrison Road, that's going to affect the assessed value out in those geographies. We're going to have to figure out, it's been a while since we've gone in and quantified, okay, here's the number of homes in each one, but we're going to have to do that to figure out how those reformulations are going to affect it. There's a new deduction that's available for 2% tax cap properties. And so that would include farmland, and you've got farmland in some of these, and also rental residential housing. So you do have some apartments in some of these allocation areas. That's going to affect the assessed values in those areas. On a go-forward basis as well, one thing to mention, those deductions, as we already talked about, those are going to be applied throughout the county. That's going to shrink the tax base of Delaware County. And that's going to put upward pressure on your tax rates. So you might think, we sometimes joke that TIF is the only time you want tax rates to go up. But there is a provision in Senate Enrolled Act 1 where, and this is going to be something else we're going to have to work with the auditor's office on, where you have to neutralize the effects of that increase in tax rates so the TIF can't see a revenue windfall from that growth in tax rate. So it's going to be revenue neutral from that standpoint. Another thing, two other things to look at, the personal property, the change in the assessment of depreciable personal property. What's going to happen with your existing TIF areas is those are grandfathered in. So you've got taxpayers designated, and what that means is you've named specifically these businesses as designated taxpayers eligible to capture tax increment from personal property. Tax increment capture of personal property isn't automatic. You've got designated taxpayers in Magna, PRL, Houston, Fountain Square, and then out in the Park One area and Save-A-Lot, where the businesses are having their and Midwest Metal as well, having personal property captured. They're going to continue to be assessed as the law stands now. So they're still going to be subject to that 30% depreciation floor you hear about. For all other businesses or any prospective businesses, you're not going to have that 30% depreciation floor. So that's going to reduce the revenue potential if you want to capture personal property. So the transaction that the county negotiated and executed with Campact, for example, you're not going to have as much revenue meat to put behind something like that because you're not going to have that minimum assessed valuation that you can lean on to protect the revenue stream. So that's something to bear in mind going forward as we're looking at allocation areas. Another one that hasn't been getting as much attention, and that's because it's a few years down the line and we need a lot of guidance from the state, is, Delaware County has a local income tax for property tax replacement. What that effectively means is, each year the council determines how do you want to allocate that, that local income tax, property tax replacement. a portion of people's tax bills property tax bills are actually funded from income taxes, reducing their tax basis, and that actually reduces their exposure to the tax caps. The new legislation ends all of that. It completely reworks the lit formulas. Unless you reenact a property tax relief rate, and we don't know if that property tax relief rate is going to operate the same as the current one as it stands now, you're going to lose that property tax replacement credit, which means you're going to see taxpayers seeing slightly higher property tax bills and more likely to hit the tax caps or go above the tax caps, increasing your revenue losses to the civil taxing unit of the county, but that can also increase revenue losses due to the tax caps in your TIF areas as well. So that's one we're watching and, eagerly working through, how's this going to operate? One other one that I forgot to mention is those increases in deductions for homestead. If you were looking at, I've had these conversations over the years with the county, if you were looking to do a housing TIF area, which is a relatively new tool, but where you can capture homestead residential, if you're looking at higher deductions for homesteads, less assessed value from homesteads, that weakens the residential TIF as a tool. So it's going to make it a little less viable, a little less powerful to deploy to support housing development, which primarily you're looking to do in more rural areas. So those are some of the highlights. Again, as we learn more, we'll be sure to share more. You guys and everyone else are asking me those questions. So we want to make sure that you're fully informed to the extent that we can provide that information.
Thank you, Matt. Council, have any questions they'd like to ask?
Thank you, Matt. We appreciate bringing the council up to speed with all the TIF districts.
Happy to. Thank you. And again, thank you to the auditor's office for everything that you guys do. And Brad, thank you for providing us with information over the years as well. That was really helpful to our role.
Now, as Matt said, he's always available to answer questions, so email him. I will send out the report that he sent me yesterday to all of council. Include Ed on that too if you want. Great, thanks. All right, moving on to our transfer and appropriation agenda. Start with transfers. Whitney.
145 jail. 223 operating supplies, food, lodging. Negative 300,000. 311 contractual services. Positive $300,000 for a total of $0.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion by Jessica, second by Dan. Answer, Tony, you want to go ahead and explain this, please?
I will. Tony Skinner, Delaware County Sheriff. This is to move money over into contractual services for us to enact the food vendor for the jail. So we've taken $300,000 from our food line, put it in contractual services. That should get us through the first couple of months pretty easily, actually several months if we wanted it to. Once that's rolling, we'll come back in a few months and ask to transfer the rest from the food line, and then anything from the salary lines and overtime for our cook. That'll get us through the rest of the year. So this is just help start fund the food vendor for the jail.
All righty, thank you. Council, questions?
Say it again, please, Sheriff.
Is it not my understanding that the company you contracted with, are they not providing their own food and services? I guess I don't understand where this $300,000 you're taking out of the food that you already have and contracted for.
So they're gonna prepare the meals. They're gonna hire our cooks that we have over as their employees, so they'll no longer be county employees. They'll buy the food, they'll prepare the food just like we do now with our cooks and the work and the additional work of the inmate workers. But for every meal that they serve, we have to pay them for that, so it's $1.72 or $1.68. But this money is gonna help fund that.
Any other questions?
Sheriff, who's the company that you're contracting with?
Victus Food Service, VICTUS.
All right, hearing nothing further, roll call, please. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Cantz.
Yes.
Mr. Mokel.
Yes.
Mr. Bookout.
Yes.
Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Whitehead. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on, Whitney.
123, Title 4D Court. 102, 101, Assistant Court Reporter, positive $57.26. 103, 101, Court Reporter, positive $57.26. 104, 101, Master Commissioner, positive $555.57. 182, longevity. This is supposed to say prorated pay. That was my mistake. Just so you know. Negative $114.52. 184, longevity experience pay, prosecutor commissioner, negative 555. Then 176, longevity, positive $50. And then 536, equipment, negative $50 for a total of $0.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion by Jessica, a second by Dan, and this is the amended with the prorated pay instead of longevity for 182, correct? Jessica?
Yeah.
All right, making sure. All right, any questions or comments for Emily?
One comment, not apropos of this transfer, but, as the council, I think is aware, we did have a magistrate, was actually in the bill, but was taken out at appropriation stage, but, I certainly want to thank Senator Alexander, who made the effort to get that.
Hearing nothing else, roll call, please. Mr. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Cantz. Mr. Mokel.
Yes.
Mr. Bookout.
Yes.
Ms. Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Whitehead. Yes. All right, moving on, Whitney.
Moving on to other. 1212, Del Casa Grant. 101, 101, Program Director, positive $17,000. 310, Professional Services, negative $17,000 for a total of $0.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion by Jessica, second by Dan. Actually, and Emily.
Yeah. Court Assistant, Emily Anderson, Court Administrator. I'm gonna explain this because it's gonna also play into the appropriation side. She's gonna hand out a couple things to you before I go into it.
Of course it is. Same thing you handed out. Summary. Perfect.
Yes, you have your summary. And you have a new spreadsheet that makes sense.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Ash. So Ashley Soldat, our director for CASA, has been approached with an opportunity for another position. It kind of put us in a weird situation because we won't know until April 30th whether or not that position is coming through on a state budget. So it puts us in a position with you all that we need to get it approved, but it kind of puts us in between two meetings. So when we're looking at her position, we wanted to kind of look at the situation that CASA has currently, which is what we brought to you at last budget, and that is the problem with dealing with legalities in CASA and dealing with the issues they face. And that's when we asked for those legal fees last year, and you gave us the money for legal fees for getting help and asking for help with an attorney and paying for that attorney. So with that, we want to take that $20,000 or the balance of that $20,000 and put it in towards the salary and make this position, if she were to leave, make this position a position that requires a law degree, which would make that salary the $78,656. If we were to do that, then we would need to to transfer the $17,000 on this transfer here, and then also appropriate some money. Appropriating enough to pay her out for her PTO, bring that person in hopefully to be able to train with her for at least a week or two so she can show them the ropes. And then also appropriate a little bit more money for health insurance because she does not take health insurance. We don't know if that person will need health insurance, so I put it at the family rate, and I put it for starting immediately in case they transfer from another department in the county. So that is what you're looking at with the executive summary and the spreadsheet. What is in front of you is the actual transfer of the $17,000 from the legal fee line into the salary line. Now, what we talked about at finance is she has no idea for sure if she's going to take it or not, because if the state budget isn't approved with her lines in it, she's got to make a decision. That decision is, does she take it from this without the state money, meaning she has no staff? Her job would be herself and her alone running this new position, which is helping young single mothers getting education to remove barriers so they can get an education like housing and things like that. Or does she turn it down because she doesn't want all of that responsibility? So we don't know for sure if she's going to take it. We don't know for sure if it's going to go past the budget. So we talked about at finance, can we go ahead and get it approved, get the job description approved, and then if it doesn't go through, then just reverse all of it at the next meeting. But we want to get it approved ahead of time because if she does take it, we've got to be ahead of the game because we can't go without a director for CASA. Does that make sense? I try to short and sweet it as much as possible.
That does make sense for myself because I sat in and heard it the first time around, but the rest of council, do you have questions? More clarification?
Do we have a cap on PTO?
Yes, so according to our handbook, we get paid in Falls County. She gets paid out for half of her bank, and the max is 195, and then she gets paid everything that her balance is for this year, and that's where I come up with that 300 hours. Half of 195 plus whatever she's got left for the rest of this year. So
You've already taken that into account.
She's already taken some time this year, but that's how much she has left after we pay her out.
And this revised job description has not gone to the...
We gave it to Matt, and he said that, the only changes, as you can see, is pretty much holding the law degree, and then also that person helping with legal advice, legal motions, and things like that. Matt said they could hold a special meeting to get that passed.
That would need to be done.
Yes, it would need to be done pretty quickly. The other thing I want to mention is I know that salary for an attorney seems pretty low. We know it's lower, but they don't have a caseload as an attorney would, like in the prosecutor or public defender or whatever. They're more managing the director position along with some legal sides of things. So that's why we are going to see if we can put it out there and get someone to do it. We do have somebody that's very interested, but they're currently working and need to retire. So
Not Mr. Hughes, is it?
It's Mr. Hughes. How did you know that?
I'd be depressed if he left.
Yeah.
Did Matt have any questions?
Yeah, so Matt just made a statement, there's no reason to do the job description until the council approves the dollars, but to your point, we did talk in finance that we could get together and go over this, because I think there was conversation too about the job category, changing to
Changing the job
executive. Yeah,
category.
so there's,
And naming it something a little different,
to
so,
make it clear that it was someone with a law degree.
yes,
So,
on the title.
but yeah, so that was what Matt's comment was there on that.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
Any other questions from council? All right, hearing none, roll call. Ms. Flanagan.
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
Cantz. Mokel.
Yes.
Bookout.
Yes.
Piper.
Yes.
Whitehead. Yes.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. See you later, I'm sure. All right, moving on, Whitney.
1122 project income, 138,101 peer recovery coach, negative 12,933 and 36 cents. 337,101 PTP / HD case manager, positive $12,903.36 for total.
Move to approve?
Second?
Motion by Jessica, second by Dan. Dan, you want to explain this, please?
Sure. Good morning, Jane Miranda, Community Corrections. This is our CTP, which is Community Transition Program and Home Detention Case Manager. She is historically paid out of our DOC grant and our 1123 fund, which is a CTP fund. Because of all of the changes that the DOC has made with that program, that fund or those funds are no longer guaranteed like they used to be. So we want to move her into a line in our project income so that her payroll is not affected, and then use the 1123 fund kind of like a savings account. So when we do get funds deposited, they're just staying in there.
Any questions for Jane? Hearing none, roll call, please. Ms. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Cantz.
You're on mute.
Mr. Mokel.
Yes.
Mr. Bookout.
Yes.
Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Whitehead. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jane. All right, moving on, Whitney.
1135 cumulative bridge, 400 230 repair and maintenance supplies, negative 24,000. 400 537 vehicles, positive $24,000 for a total of 0.
Move to approve?
Second. Motion by Jessica, second by Dan. We had a very good explanation of this, and Carrie, if you would, give us a short version of it this time.
Okay. Carrie Dye, County Highway. This is to purchase a used 2004 Gradle. It's going to be purchased from Grant County. They are upgrading some of their equipment, and this will give us a second Gradle that we can use to put culvert pipes in. Last year's ours did go down for a few months, so we were out of service. So this will give us a great backup.
What is a Gradle?
Gradle is a piece of equipment, kind of like a excavator, but not, or more like a loader, I guess, that dips ditches out.
And it's on tires, so it doesn't mess up the
Yeah,
road versus
there's no
tracks.
tracks.
And it transports.
Or we've also used it in the recent storms to move large trees off the roadway.
How much does a new one cost?
About 400,000.
Got a good deal.
The only thing wrong with this one that they stated is it has 2 cabs on it, and the back cab doesn't have heat. So we'll just have somebody wear an extra jacket in the winter.
No further questions, roll call, please. Ms. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Cantz.
Yes.
Vogel.
Yes.
Ms. Bookout.
Yes.
Ms. Piper.
Yes,
Mr. Whitehead. Yes.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Carrie and Tommy both for that. All right, Whitney, moving on, please.
1195 high-tech crime scene. 220 operating supplies, positive $2,000. 390 training, negative $4,000. 536 positive $2,000 for a total of $0.
Move to approve.
Second. Motion by Jessica, second by Dan. Jeff, can you give us a little overview, please?
Chuck Zimmers, HTCU Director. We are just, the Conferences and Training Fund is not necessarily a requirement. It's something we can go to training as we can afford it. Everybody's certified currently, which is great. So it's just ongoing education, but we're needing, more funds and operating supplies. That's almost under 200 now. And that's just continually buying things we need to operate. Additional hard drives, just all kinds of perishable stuff that just add up or consumable. And equipment, it seems I've added some new people and we're adding some functionality. And I'm always spending equipment money and that's quickly dropping too. So we're just getting that moved out so we can cover expenses.
All right, any questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Cantz. Mr. Mokel.
Yes.
Mr. Bookout.
Yes.
Ms. Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Whitehead.
Yes. Thanks, Chuck. Thank you. All right, moving on to appropriations. Whitney?
Major transfer, 8199, opioid response, 400 kiosks, negative 2,700. 2100 adult user fees fund, 310 professional services, positive 2,700. For a total of
Move to approve.
Second. Motion by Jessica, second by Dan. Emily, you
Can I
go
explain
slow, please.
Board Administrator Emily Anderson. Back in the end of last year, I came to council and I asked to appropriate some money or transfer some money, I can't remember which it was, to cover the kiosk bills because our grant funds hadn't come in yet. We need to catch up our kiosk bills. And so I took it out of user fees. Now I'm putting it back in user fees from the grant. So that's what this is, that major transfer. And then Keita's gonna make sure to label it correctly so the grant knows it was for those 2 months of bills.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Cantz. Mr. Mokel.
Yes.
Mr. Bookout.
Yes.
Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Whitehead.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Moving on, Whitney?
moving on to other, 1212, low cost grant. 310 professional services, $3,000 for a total of $3,000.
Move to approve.
Second. Motion by Jessica, second by Dan.
So I will explain this one as well.
Thanks, Emily.
Last month, remember I told you about Frankie, the Casa dog. He does have cancer. They did not find any actual tumors, so they caught it pretty early. But this is to cover those vet bills. We are going to retire her. Do we have a date yet? Not a date yet. We're going to go ahead and retire her. But because of the additional bills, we only fund $1,000 for vet bills throughout the year, each grant cycle. And so we're just appropriating extra money to cover all the all the vet bills that have occurred. And this is out of that grant.
Any questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Cantz. Mr. Mokel.
Yes.
Bookout.
Yes.
Ms. Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Whitehead.
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving on, Whitney?
1212, Del Casa grant. 101, program director, 10,500. 173, health insurance, $13,076 for a total of $23,576.
Move to approve.
Second. Motion by Jessica, second by Dan. All heard the
This is the
explanation
remainder of
once.
that. What I talked about on the transfer side, this is that appropriation that we need to cover everything for the new director position if it were to happen.
And this is coming out of the grant.
This is coming out of the grant.
Any questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Cantz.
Yes.
Mr. Mokel.
Yes.
Mr. Bookout.
Yes.
Ms. Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Whitehead.
Yes.
Thank you. And I will let the president know exactly what ends up happening and keep you all apprised of that.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, Whitney.
4910 EMS capital improvements, 550 other capital outlays, $10,593, total of $1,005.
Move to approve.
Second. Motion by Jessica, second by Dan. Mike, you want to give us a little explanation?
Mike Ashley, Delaware County UMS. So, 5,000 of this going to 2 deductibles for insurance because one of my trucks backed into a sheriff's truck. I still say they parked in the wrong place, but nonetheless, it was unoccupied, so I'm paying for the deductibles for both. There was really minor damage, but both had to go to the body shop, so. The other remaining balance of 5593 is to replace some recliners. They're about 8 years old, 8, 9 years old. We got about 12 of them, we're replacing 7. These are the heavy duty, like theater type recliners. I mean, they're used 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never closed. So the company we originally bought them from had a lifetime warranty. They've come and repaired them several times, but they're not in business anymore. So we replaced them through a local business here in town. It's given us a really good deal on the heavy duty furniture, and they're also gonna repair them. They're leather, so they're cleanable, but we found a long time ago it's better to go with that kind of furniture than your run of the mill couch, low seat type stuff. That's good stuff.
How many chairs did you say?
7.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mike?
Do you have any additional reason to draw on the capital improvement fund this year?
Yes, I will be, re-chassising a truck, or bought the chassis. I'll just have to come get the original, or the remaining balance to be in the 130 range. But, we'll have plenty in there. And I think they're actually, was originally not gonna get us in next year. The guy's gonna get me a date hopefully this week. We're picking the truck up Monday. And he thinks he's gonna be able to get us in a whole lot sooner. And that'll catch us up. So, I just put in that 5,000 from the deductibles back into our truck repair because that's a pretty big hit early in the year. And I've got a truck in the shop right now. It's gonna cost me about $5,000, so I didn't wanna get too far behind and then have to go through 60 days to get here and, get more money if we needed it, so.
Bill, just to let you know, they're in that after this appropriation would be $375,785 in that EMS capital improvement. Any other questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Cantz.
Yes.
Mr. Mokel.
Yes.
Bookout.
Yes.
Piper.
Yes.
Wyatt.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on, Whitney.
1173 MVH restricted, 311 contractual services, $294,594.75 for a total of $294,594.74.
Move to approve.
Second. Motion by Jessica, second by Dan. Carrie, you give us that update, please.
Yes, so this 1173 and the 9076 are gonna go together. It's for the community crossing. So the 1173, that is, our matching part of that, which is the 294,594.75. That is going to be for Walnut Street from State Road 28 to 800 North, 650 South from 450 East to 540 East, and 650 East from State Road 32 to Centennial.
How many miles is that altogether, please?
I don't have that information currently.
Okay.
Well, that's like 2 miles, right?
Yeah.
28 is 600, and then you're going to 800, so it's 2.
Just curious. Trying to do the math on the per mile cost. So. Any other questions for Carrie or Tommy while they're there? About 5 miles, Carrie.
Probably.
All right, roll call, please. Flanagan.
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
Cantz.
You had it on mute.
Mr. Mokel.
Yes.
Mr. Bookout.
Yes.
Mr. Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Whitehead.
Yes.
All right, moving right on to the next one, Whitney, please.
9076 Community Crossing Matching Grant, 311 Contractual Services, 418,750.82 $118,750.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion by Jessica, second by Dan. Carrie, you want to explain this, please?
Yes. So $124,156.07 is from a 2024 community crossing grant that we received funds for. The bids came in lower than what we were awarded, so I have to pay that back, and NDOT did not bill us for that until in 25. So I had the appropriation in 24, it died, so now I have to ask for it again so I can pay that money back to NDOT. And then the balance is the 294, 594.75. That is the second portion that goes with what we just talked about on the 1173.
Thank you. Any questions?
You haven't received the community crossing grant for this year yet.
Yes, we have been awarded the first go around for that.
I saw that, have you received it yet, or
We have not received the money yet, no.
that would go into this same fund, right?
Correct.
Any further questions? Hearing none, roll call, please. Mr. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Cantz.
Yes.
Mr. Mokel.
Yes.
Mr. Bookout.
Yes.
Mr. Piper.
Yes,
Mr. Whitehead.
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to approve financial transfers and to amend salary ordinance with like reductions.
Second.
Motion by Jessica, second by Dan. Roll call. Mr. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Mokel.
Yes.
Mr. Bookout.
Yes.
Mr. Piper.
Yes.
Cantz.
Yes.
Mr. Whitehead.
Yes.
I move that we receive the backfilling report.
Second.
Motion by Bill, second by Dan. Roll call, please. Mr. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Mokel.
Yes.
Mr. Bookout.
Yes.
Mr. Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Cantz. Go ahead.
Yes.
Alrighty, thank you. Moving on to our resolution 2025-08.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2025-08.
Second.
Motion by Jessica, second by Dan. We'd like to make something very clear that was just pointed out to me this morning. When you go to do your budgets, you don't have to include all of these in there before you submit them. You can go to the auditor's office and Whitney will help you out on separating all these out. Is that correct, Whitney? Hopefully that, the way you looked at me, I wasn't sure that I was phrasing it correctly, but hopefully that alleviates some of the concern regarding this resolution. Do we have any comments or questions?
I just might explain it a little bit.
Sure. I mean, Matt and I, when we did started, I would say a couple months ago in finance and a meeting with Ed, where we would like to see all the budgets broken out for the individual costs of the employees. Right now, the commissioners hold a premium amount of money in their budgets that are allocated out through all the other departments. And in doing this, each department would have within their budget the actual cost, hopefully the actual cost of each of their employees. It gives us a little more accurate assessment of the budgets when they're turned in from each department.
So it actually has no impact on the overall budget. Reorganizing so that we better trace those.
That is correct. Say something.
No, I lost
Okay.
connection.
I
I
got
got
you.
it back up, yeah.
Is that clear enough, Bill, or?
No, yes, it is. I appreciate
Thank you for the question. I want to thank Ben for putting it together and Ed and Matt as well for working on this with us. If there's no other.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
And I did get disconnected for a second, hear your explanation, but just to reiterate from what you said, I feel strongly that for budgeting purposes moving forward and the challenges we may be facing, every department is accounting for every dollar of their own, from an employee standpoint. It's, to me, the biggest driver. Yes.
Thank you, Matt.
I think it's also, it'll be nice to be able, if you're a data person looking at each department's budget moving forward, it'll be a more clear picture, because like when you look historically, it looks like the commissioner's budget's just like super inflated and continues to grow like crazy, when really a lot of that's just those benefits that are continue to grow. So it'll give a better snapshot of what's actually going on.
Correct.
And I understood the commissioners are on board with this.
All right. Hearing nothing further, roll call, please. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Mokel.
Yes.
Bookout.
Yes.
Ms. Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Cantz.
Yes.
Mr. Whitehead.
Yes.
All right, thank you. I put council rules under old business. I've not heard from anybody from council as far as any other additions or improvements or corrections. Does council have any that they'd like to bring forward? No? All right. The ones that I brought forward to you were a change to the date and time when ordinance and resolutions shall be in final form distributed to council, which is page 4, section 6.02. What you have printed off in front of you is the old version, and I'd like to change that from Friday 9 a.m. to Thursday noon. And then on the agenda, I believe we discussed changing the consideration of ordinances and resolutions and putting it higher than the appointments and committee reports, switching 8 and 9.
We're gonna put something ahead of the transfer. As we did today, for instance.
Well, at the request of Mr. Eckerly, I moved up the appointments and committee reports because he had a time crunch and needed to be out the door at a hard time. With his request, I rearranged the agenda just for this meeting.
Okay.
The changes were not included in our packet we were handed. Just have the original. You have all the changes with you, Ben. There's one more, right?
Everything that you've read is what I had. The only other one was, I believe it's a change to 2.08 on page 2 to read, county sheriff or a county deputy sheriff shall attend meetings of the council if requested to do so and shall execute the orders of the council.
I was just correcting a typo.
Yes.
Okay, we'll get an updated copy of the rules that these are passed.
I'll integrate them into the master list and email them out.
One point I'd like to make on 5.04, and make no mistake, I'm prepared to support this in the current version today, but under appointments made by the council, in effect, on off years of the election, a lame duck majority four-member council could be appointing members for the incoming new majority council body. Legal counsel or what legality there is regarding that, but could be a concern. Always a new council can make new appointments, so.
I don't have any legal concerns. I mean, the members of the council are the members of the council until new members are sworn in, so they have the ability, even a lame duck still has the ability to vote.
You know, in the past, there have been times we've done these board appointments at our January meeting.
Yeah.
On that reorganization meeting for that reason.
In the past, that previous, in December. Again, I'm prepared to pass this if it's going forward, but, and that could be a concern.
And we can always update it and change it at any time. Yeah. I do know one reason that we moved it to December was because there was a board that came to us and said they needed to have their members appointed prior to the first of the year to get them trained and qualified and educated. And it might have been the housing authority.
Frankly, it's easier because, of course, January 1.
Correct.
Yeah. This body literally needs to meet January 1st, make appointment. Respect.
Are you wanting a change now, or are you wanting
No,
to?
I'm not. I'm fine with it the way it is. I just want
Okay.
finish.
Any other comments or questions? All right, I entertain a motion to approve the amendments.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Jessica, second by Dan. I guess any further before we roll call? Last chance. All right, roll call, please.
Ms. Flanagan.
Yes.
Ms. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Mokel.
Yes.
Cookout.
Yes.
Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Cantz. Whitehead.
Yes. Does the council have any new business they want to bring forth? All right, moving on. Elected officials and department heads.
I just need clarification quickly. This is Emily Anderson, Court Administrator. As we're working on our budgets, what we just talked about a few minutes ago, and Whitney said she can help us with these things, what is the timeline looking like for us to have our budgets ready? Because, normally it's due by the end of June, July 1st. And since we're going to have to put these in electronically, are we going to have them done earlier? Are we going to have them done at the same time? Because we're going to have to make appointments with Whitney. So I don't know if that timeline's going to change, because I don't think anybody really realizes that this is something that's changing.
We'll send out a schedule. It will be slightly sooner.
A little bit sooner.
Yeah.
So we need to have our budget kind of completed before what? June 15th or June?
I would suggest by June 1st, although not every department would need it by then, because we're going to have to bring each department in and sit down with them, enter into the system. But
So we
that
probably
doesn't mean you can't make changes until the end
of the month.
Right.
Okay, but have an idea of what we have, because we have to then meet with her
Right.
in order to start putting it into the electronic system. And then that's what you mean by she can help us get all the breakout. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word breakouts. So as long as we have our main budget ready, then she'll help us with the breakouts. And then we have to do amendments. We have until the end of the month to do that.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Emily. Gavin?
Gavin Green, Delaware County Coroner. To kind of follow up what Emily just said about the breakup for the salaries. So hypothetically, if we have our chief deputy that's making $38,000 a year, then we're going to break out, if he was taking the insurance, breaking that out, they're going to help us with the breakout. So we're not necessarily artificially taking the money out of the commissioner's budget and putting it ours. We're just breaking it out. Or is our budget going to look like it's more heavy? But it's more heavy, so when we present to council, you're 11% more, and you're like, not really, because they're 11% lighter over there. Okay, just wanted to, that's gonna be a lot of fun.
Not all about spreadsheets, we'll be fine.
Yeah, right. Just wanted to give everybody an update that we had in March, we had 36 cases. I'm still waiting on Q1 reports because the health department is normally 30 days afterwards, and our reports from our pathologist 6 to 8 weeks afterwards, so I can't give a total number. And so we're roughly having about 1.2 cases a day. We had 36 last in the month of March. Currently in April, we're at 26. We're running around the same exact cases. So for the total for the year, we've had 158 cases that our office has dealt with. But the coroner's office has been notified either going to scene or phone consults or anything like that. So,
Where were you, this time last year?
we were right about the same. When I get my Q1 report, when I come back next month to report, I should have that, and I'll be able to give that information. So, it's really interesting to look to see that we're running exactly 1.2 cases now as we were last month. But like that, you really can't project. But Gary and I just pulled the reports. Gary and I each had 39 cases total for this year, and the exact same. So we just started a new scheduling program 2 weeks ago, so that data people that are here, when it comes to being on call versus actual cases, we actually have a system now that's going to be able to report back to you the number of hours that we were on call. So if we have to pick up shift that one of our part-time deputies unable to pick up, we're reflecting that, and then we're also tracking all of our on-call hours for all of our part-time deputies as well. So for the 6,000+ hours a year, we will have accounted for every single hour that a coroner has been on call, and we'll be able to track it back to that person. So when you say, well, you only get 39 cases a year, correct, but out of those 39 cases, we were on call for 378 hours that we had to wait for that call. And those waiting hours are waiting around. You have to hop off the lawnmower when you're mowing. You have to stop what you're doing, getting off the roof from cleaning gutters, as Gary did yesterday. He was on call, so yeah, those on-call hours when it comes to, just like the fire department, they're also on call 24/7, and they're immediately available as well. So I should be able to present that to you next month as well. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you,
Thank
Gavin.
you.
Harry?
I just have a quick question. With the budget, so we currently at County Highway, we break all of our stuff out. But the vision and the dental, am I gonna get that information, on our employees from Whitney? Or do I go through Marissa? Do I go through HR? You'll have it? Okay, thank you.
If I may,
Please,
oftentimes these
tell us who
meetings.
you are.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tanya Dunsmore, Chief Deputy Auditor. I don't want to cause panic on everyone, because that's what kind of happens sometimes when we bring this up at a meeting here and the rest of the county's unaware. And then a lot of the departments, they're not necessarily here or even watching the meetings. So there's a lot of information that will need to go out to the departments for them to clearly understand what is happening with the resolution and what's happening with their budget. We do have time. I don't want people to panic and be like, oh, now we have to have our budgets done June 1st, and the whole place will just start ranting and raving about it. We will work with each department in the same way that we did chart of accounts, and that is having them come in and work with us. And I think we got those all in like, I don't know, 2 weeks' time. You know, when we brought in each and every department, we did that in about 2 weeks' time as far as bringing them in and going through everything with them. It'll be kind of the same process. So I just don't want everyone to panic and worry, because we'll get through it. And we have time to process everything.
Sounds good. And the auditor's office is going to send out notifications in the schedule when it's appropriate?
Right.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other elected officials and department heads? Emily, would you do me a favor and see if anybody signed up? Thank you for checking. Nobody signed up for public comment? All right, comments from council.
I'd like
Earth Day today.
Yes, it's Earth Day today, and I'd like to thank the public for coming, and a lot of stuff that the department heads don't get credit for is they do actually go through efforts to save money. I know we make fun of them because we can, because we're friends, but it's appreciated. Some of the things they do is not seen by the public, and it needs to be known.
I have one comment, you may recall, I think it was a budget hearing last year, County Reporter Jan Smoot told us about the property fraud alert system, that you can sign up for through the reporter's office. It's free, and I'd kind of forgotten about it, but I had an occasion to record a deed last week, and within 24 hours, I received an alert. So if it had been a fraudulent document, I would know immediately. So the system does work, and I would encourage, if you haven't done it already, to sign up.
Any other comments? I'll echo what Bill said. I've been in the situation the same way and received an alert within 24 hours of deed being recorded. So it's a very good setup and system. I guess I'll be the bearer of bad news with comments. Everybody knows that Senate Enrolled Act 1, thank you, Gavin, has been passed and signed. And the way that the numbers are coming out from the state, it does look like there's going to be a net reduction in revenue. Until I see other forms that say different, that's what it looks like, which means that our county budget is going to have to be reduced. And so I'm putting forth to every department head and elected official that puts together a budget, we're going to have to look for ways to reduce expenses. I know it's not what everybody wants to hear, but that's where we have to start, and that's where we have to begin it, and council has already started that process. So beyond that, as a farmer, I would like to mention to everyone that there's going to be slow equipment on the road. We do our best to be polite and get over, but please be considerate of the farm equipment that's going to be on the road for the next 5 to 6 weeks. We sure would appreciate everybody being safe. Any other comments from council? I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jessica, second by Dan. Roll call.
Flanagan.
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
Mokel.
Yes.
Cookout.
Yes.
Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Cantz. Mr. Whitehead.
Yes. Thank you all.
Bye, Matt. Thanks for playing.